The untold truth behind, oh yeah, Black Ops Call of Duty Cold War.
In the latest Black Ops Cold War game, you play as a character that's part of what's known as the CIA's Special Activities Division, or SAD. This was and still is the CIA's paramilitary division. Basically, it's the president's own secret military. See, if we had a problem with another country, if we sent in our conventional military, it would be an act of war. An act of war that might spark World War III. Something that after World War II, everyone was terrified of.
There is a bright flash, brighter than the sun.
So when diplomacy isn't working and going to war is unwise, the president has a third option. Covert action operations, using the CIA's Special Activities Division. This can be for surveillance, infiltration, kidnapping, with the most extreme being assassinations.
The misnomer is like, oh, the SEALs killed bin Laden. Well, they were SEALs trained, but that was a CIA mission. Because Pakistan is a sovereign nation. The military can't kill people in countries we're not at war with. So those guys all became essentially CIA operators for the night.
Oh, cool. Which is very different. Sorry, I just wanted to scan through it.
And in the new Black Ops game, you play as one of these SAD operators that trod the globe on the hunt for a mysterious Soviet spy codenamed Perseus that has recently come into play. The idea of this game is to shine a light on how both sides of the Cold War got their hands pretty dirty, how both sides operated in gray areas.
Sir, their requests are highly irregular, most likely illegal if the press gets a hold.
What the hell are you talking about? You know who we are?
Every mission we go on is illegal.
Yeah,
They even
fuck
proudly
you!
claim that this game is inspired by actual events, that they base specific missions and locations on recently declassified US government documents that they got their hands on. But how much of this is true, and how much of Black Ops Cold War is pure fiction? To get to the bottom of this, we have to go back to the first atomic bombs over Japan.
We're all aware of Perseus. We're also aware he's more myth than fact. I mean, yeah, I think he's nothing more than the Russian boogeyman.
The funniest part about this dude is that I still don't know if he's being ironic, if he's being sarcastic, or if he's just like literally a fucking psychopathic ANCAP. I still don't know, because sometimes he says shit that's so outrageous. Sometimes he says shit that's so outrageous where I'm like, there's no way this is not ironic. He makes really good videos though, regardless.
Now, I myself love first-person shooters, but let's face it, unless you're gonna become a professional gamer or streamer, playing video games isn't gonna pay the bills. But you know what is gonna pay the bills? Learning, curiosity, honing in new skills. The problem is, but boy, you get a grit in the next book. Smarter, expensive, rising, people wanna tramp off the little. On August 6, 1945, the US dropped the Little Boy nuclear bomb over Hiroshima. 3 days later, humanity witnessed a second nuclear attack with the Fat Man bomb over Nagasaki. The effort that created these nukes was none other than the Manhattan Project, with one of the main locations at the Los Alamos Laboratory in New Mexico. Needless to say, the Manhattan Project was as top secret as it gets. And America's new enemy, the Soviet Union, was nowhere near as technologically capable as the US at the time. And yet, only 4 years later in 1949, the Soviet Union had already conducted its first nuclear test, codenamed RDS-1.
Yeah, that's right.
That's from Death of Stalin, by the way. Very good movie. An Armando Iannucci classic. I love him. He is the guy who wrote it. Also wrote Veep, and great movie.
Later in 1949, the Soviet Union had already conducted its first nuclear test, codenamed RDS-1.
Yeah, that's right.
Which looks suspiciously similar to America's Fat Man. the suspicion of at least one mole in the Manhattan Project was real. This is where what's called the Banana Project came to the rescue. The Banana Project was set up during World War II when the Soviet Union was still an ally. This counterintelligence operation was created to intercept and decrypt messages from the Soviet Union's intelligence agencies. 1 year after that first Soviet nuclear test, the Banana Project pointed to an atomic spy named Klaus Fuchs. Klaus was a theoretical physicist on the Manhattan Project who was responsible for a lot of important theoretical calculations for the first nuclear weapons. His arrest eventually led to the arrest of atomic spy David Greenglass, who would then help to convict his sister and brother-in-law, two separate Soviet spies named Ethel and Julius Rosenberg, both of which ended up being executed. But the Banana Project still had one unsolved mystery: another unidentified spy at Los Alamos. A spy that when decrypted went by the codename Pers, or Perseus, the main antagonist you chase down in the new Black Ops game. Was there another atomic spy at Los Alamos? Were they so well hidden that they remain undetected? That's what the intelligence community feared, and it will remain a
pathetic
mystery all the way up until the early 1990s after the Soviet Union collapsed. Former KGB officers claimed in their memoirs that Perseus was a real spy. A man high up in the academic community accused another respected academic of being Perseus. But in the end, when the Banana decryptions were released back in 1995, it became clear that Perseus was just a disinformation campaign to hide the real atomic spy that was still active at the time, Theodore Hall. Perseus was given characteristics that intentionally didn't fit Hall, so he would go undetected. Or at least that's what Cold War historian John Earl Haynes claimed in the CIA's journal called Studies in Intelligence. Was there a real Perseus that CIA operators chased around the globe like in Black Ops Cold War? Was there something new that was discovered in those recently declassified documents the game creators got their hands on? Was there something that I completely missed in my research? This is the CIA and the KGB we're talking about here, so possibly. But we might never know. As for the real Perseus Theodore Hall, he was actually briefly questioned in 1951 by the FBI after the first spy was exposed, but he never ended up getting charged. And in 1998, this is what he stated on CNN's Cold War TV series.
I decided to give atomic secrets to the Russians because it seemed to me that it was important that there should be no monopoly which could turn one nation into a menace and turn it loose on the world as Nazi Germany developed. There seemed to be only one answer to what one should do. The right thing to do was to act to break the American monopoly.
So now that we have the main plot of Black Ops Cold War covered, let's go over some of the iconic
Give North Korea nukes. Give Iran their own nukes. Give Iran their own nukes.
locations the game takes place in and the actual history behind them. One of the more unexpected locations in Black Ops Cold War is Miami. Castro took over Cuba in 1959. The US decided that it didn't like having an enemy 100 miles offshore.
We didn't have Miami in the game. What was that about?
Or in 1950s in Black. One of the more unexpected locations in Black Ops Cold War is Miami.
Why wasn't it? No, don't say it's Black Ops 1. It's in the multiplayer, but they didn't put it in the... Yeah, they didn't fucking put that in.
Castro took over Cuba in 1959. The US decided that it didn't like having an enemy 100 miles offshore or 10 hours by boat from Florida.
That son of a bitch Castro is shitting all over us.
So a year after Castro took power, the CIA made it its job to assassinate him and overthrow the communist government, codenamed Operation Mongoose. In total, Castro's head of security...
Wait, you can do that in the video game? That's so fucked up. I'm just kidding. Can you kill JFK in COD or no?
He claimed that there were over 600 plots and conspiracies dreamt up to assassinate him. From poison cigars, exploding cigars, a poison scuba diving suit, a pen with a poison needle...
Why are you guys saying Pepela? Oh, because he already died?
...in it.
You think we didn't know of your plan?
We always know.
And they were all carried out or planned to be carried out by third-party Cubans that weren't associated with the CIA. Now this obviously takes a lot of logistics and planning, so they built a new CIA station in Miami, codenamed JM Wave 12 miles south of the University of Miami. JM Wave would be concealed under the front company Zenith Technical Enterprises Incorporated, along with 300 to 400 other front companies scattered throughout South Florida, ranging from safe houses to covered businesses and other properties. At its peak, JM Wave would grow to be the largest CIA station in the world, aside from the CIA's headquarters in Langley, Virginia. The CIA became Miami's largest employer during this period. They had their own fleet of boats and planes.
You know, fucking easier to transport stuff, you know, when your main business is export import. When you're in the trading business, you gotta be closer to the closest point.
Which would later be known as the third largest navy in the Caribbean at the time, all with the goal of toppling the Cuban government through training Cuban exiles in guerrilla warfare, espionage, and more. And all this was possible thanks to a nice 50 million.
And that's how Cuba overthrew that's how those Cuban guerrillas overthrew the Cuban government. And that's why we have the grandson of Batista running the country now. Oh wait, that didn't happen because America fucking lost. They got their shit pushed in.
$1 million annual budget in mid-1960s dollars, or around $413 million in 2020 dollars. $400 million pumped into any local economy would make it booming, or at least appear to be booming. And that's exactly what happened in South Florida. By 1968, the station was deemed obsolete, they had some PR problems, and it was eventually replaced with a smaller station on Miami Beach.
Never mind, that's why they failed, dude. That makes sense. I was thinking like, I mean, dude, if you got fucking graduates, if you're trying to get graduates into the CIA, like, yeah, no wonder your fucking missions are dog shit.
Another prominent location the game showed off was Angola. If you're not familiar, Angola is a southwestern African nation that was ruled by the Portuguese for around 500 years. When they became independent of Portugal in 1975, civil war broke out between two major sides. The pro-communist side, funded by the Soviet Union.
In the 1960s, it had received training from Cuba and arms from Moscow.
And the anti-communist side, funded by none other than the US and the CIA. Even though Angola does have a lot of resources and is thought to be potentially one of the richest nations in southern Africa, from agriculture to oil, diamonds, and iron, the US was apparently mainly interested in keeping communism from spreading.
The focus was on Soviet penetration and the possibility of the Soviet Union.
Christ, dude. Hold on. Wait, is this guy? This isn't P.W. Botha, right? This is like, is he related to him or is that him? Not even inviting them to movies. Peak Bota. Not related. Oh, okay. The South African. He was pro-apartheid? Yeah, no shit. Of course they're pro-apartheid.
Using unstable situations in Africa to take root and foment trouble.
And Angola became what you can call a surrogate battleground, or a proxy war between the US, the Soviets, Cuba, and South Africa.
Washington ruled out intervention in Angola with American troops. Instead, it turned, secretly, to South Africa.
We were alone, poorly equipped, poorly trained, poorly armed. We requested help from the Cubans to help us resist.
But did they know that fucking Che Guevara and Castro were both racist, Sweaty? Not Castro, but
that aggression.
Cuba sent 400 military instructors to Luanda. Moscow began shipping hundreds of tons of arms, tanks, and missiles direct.
People in Angola would be so disappointed that, you know, one side was apartheid South Africa, the CIA, ex-Nazis, current Nazis, that sort of thing. And the other side was, well, the other side also used to be homophobic and racist. So, you know, that's not ethically sourced is what I'm saying. Like the guns that and the training that you got, not ethically sourced. Not a good look. Sweaty.
To Luanda.
At one point, the CIA was spending $50 million on the Angolan war. They would send cargo planes filled with weapons to the neighboring country. Those weapons would be then flown into Angola on smaller planes. And the US even hired private military contractors to fight there for them.
It secretly provided money for Roberto and Savimbi to recruit mercenaries from Africa, America, and Europe.
The Angolan Civil War would continue all the way to 2002.
I was joking. You don't think that that's serious, right? Because yesterday someone was like, did you know Che Guevara was a racist and homophobe? I'm like, what are you going to do? Cancel him, dude? Okay, cancel him. Too late. God canceled him first. Okay, so you couldn't get there. But also the joke is that the joke is that like Che Guevara saying that Che Guevara is racist is hilarious because he did say some racist shit when he was younger, but like he literally spent the rest of his fucking adult life fighting revolutionary struggle in African nations. So, you know, kind of weird for you to be like, he's like, he spent the rest of his life killing Nazis in Africa. So I don't know, like, or fascists in Africa. So, you know, you can pull up his old tweets all you want. This is no laughing matter. I mean, I don't give a shit.
With some breaks in between. Another location I didn't know much about was the Ural Mountains, a long, narrow mountain range that acts as a natural border separating Europe from Asia. Like we talked about earlier, after World War II ended, the Soviets were desperate to create a nuclear weapon as fast as possible, so this area became the center of the Soviets' nuclear weapon effort, where they built secret cities to develop these nuclear weapons. One of the main facilities was called the Mayak, where they made plutonium, highly enriched uranium, and more, including components used on the Soviets' first nuclear bomb we mentioned, the RDS-1. The first U-2 spy plane was shot down surveying the site, a story that would later be told in the Tom Hanks movie Bridge of Spies. The general population knows about the Chernobyl disaster, but not many people know that there was a second Chernobyl-like disaster that happened at Mayak. Second only to the Fukushima and Chernobyl disasters, except this one was much more well covered up by both the Soviets and the CIA. Some estimates say that almost 500,000 people were contaminated, with local communities still suffering today. One of the more prominent missions showed off was the one located in Turkey. Turkey became a democratic nation in 1950 with what the CIA referred to as the first truly free election, with the next few decades filled with turmoil. It was a modernizing economy that had...
Wait, what?
Turkey became a democratic nation in 1950 with what the CIA referred
in 1950. Wasn't the Fez banned? Yes, this is from the, I think this is from the Armenian genocide movie.
referred to as the first truly free election, with the next few decades filled with turmoil. It was a modernizing economy that had traditionalist authoritarians and other factions fighting for their own interests, and things became very polarized. There was a coup in 1960, another one in 71, a crisis in the mid-70s that almost bankrupted.
He's right about that. Atatürk şapka kanalı yalanmış, onu öğrendik. Yok oğlum, bu şey Türkiye değil bu şu anda gösterdiği. Osmanlı Türkiye 1923 öncesi. Yok 25 öncesi. Şapka devrimi öncesi zamanlar zaten bu Ermeni soykırımı ile ilgili.
Bankrupt the nation in the downfall of
This is the Armenian genocide the era. So of course they're not fucking wearing. Of course they have hats on or fezzes on. 1925 is when the fez was banned. With the laïcité, laiklik, I don't know how you say it in English. Laïcité. Yeah, fez was banned, just like this will get the fucking liberal. It's not even secularism. No. Secularism is the separation of church and state. Laïcité, or however you say it, is enforcing rules. Laïcité is enforcing certain rules beyond just the separation of church and state. Where, for example, in public, headscarves were banned as well. You could still wear a turban, but some of the more aggressive headscarves were totally banned. And the fez was banned. You could only wear... Secularism is a direct translation. It's a little bit more aggressive than secularism. Laicism. Like secularism in the United States is just considered to be the separation of church and state. Aggressive headscarves, no, like more there's varying degrees of headscarves. Come on, bitch. What do you not know this? Like, it's like not just the burqa, but the I think it's niqab, right? That's the in English. Yeah. Yeah, it is like French secularism, actually. Yeah, I mean, it's based off of it, yeah. Atatürk was very Western focused. It's the difference between freedom of religion and freedom from religion. Exactly. Thank you, Noah B. That's a great example of it. Do you think laïcité is good if you're worried about a dominant church structure, like how the French laïcité initially enforced in order to minimize Catholic Church's influence? I don't know. I grew up thinking that it was a good thing, but now I feel like it's too much persecution. But having said that, there's a lot of fucking extremism that occurs too. I feel like if it's the dominant religion, if it's your own country's dominant religion, and you enforce it, especially through uplifting, especially while you're reinventing the country in your vision, it's different than like enforcing it upon immigrants that are coming into your country. Because it does end up marginalizing conservative religious people. It does end up oppressing certain people. To be honest, I don't care about the communism, capitalism, or laïcism thing. I live in the way I want. What? Yeah. Atatürk was a nationalist who wanted to modernize, which meant less primitive reliance on religious authority. Certainly. He based it off of French secularism. I think the difference, like I said, is if you yourself are reforming Islam in your country, then that's entirely different than like more progressive more progressive people putting in forced secularization in the country is different than French people doing it to Muslim people that are living in France. Like French doing it to the Catholic Church or France doing it to Christianity is different than France doing it to Islam. Especially when you consider the backlash to it. I mean, there's so many different fucking reasons for this, but Erdogan is a direct consequence of that. Erdogan, who now hides himself and makes it seem like he himself is a fan of Atatürk, literally went to jail for, in a country where there's no freedom of speech, by the way, for writing unfavorable or reading an unfavorable poem about Atatürk, if I'm not mistaken. And he is like he hated Atatürk and literally ran on anti-Kemalism and anti-Kemalist values for the longest time. Oh yeah, motherfucker, there's no freedom of speech in Turkey. Which is ironic because Erdogan himself is like one of the worst when it comes to abusing the lack of freedom of speech. Motherfucker went to to jail for a lack of freedom of speech and then was like, one day I'm going to come back and I'm going to fucking use this against all of you. Turkey's 97% Muslim, France is like 5%. That's the main difference there? Yes, exactly. Then that's what I'm saying. That's why I don't mind it when France fucking enforces secularism as a predominantly Christian nation onto itself. If America enforced secularism on Christianity, then I don't have a problem with that. When Turkey enforces secularism on Islam, then I don't have a problem with that. It's a predominantly Muslim nation enforcing secularization, forced secularization, on its own people. I don't care if there's enforced secularization in America. As a matter of fact, I would even go so far as to say it's a fucking necessity. But when you do it to minority populations, when you start doing it to minority populations, you're basically doing it to flex on people, like to enforce oppressive structures on people who are already powerless otherwise. And bro, nothing wrong with religion. It's just the rules that bound us.
Two governments within 2 years in the late 70s, with political violence sprinkled in between. Being that Turkey acts as the gateway into the Middle East and Asia, and its next to Syria, which had a ton of communist problems of its own, you can bet the CIA was interested, with them operating in Turkey as early as the late 50s. It made for a great spot to launch CIA operations against the Soviets, and they focused on creating what's known as a stay-behind guerrilla force, that if the Soviets invaded Turkey, these men would be activated to spy and sabotage the invaders. This would be known as the counter-guerrilla, which was the Turkish branch of Operation Gladio.
My guy, why should a secular nation that has successfully curbed Christianity not be allowed to curb Islam? Because the way to defeat Islamic radicalization or Islamist fundamentalists is not by fucking otherizing them further, but instead by welcoming them into your country, okay? That's how you do it. America, for all of its fucking failures, pre-9/11, did a pretty decent job at this and is literally a shining beacon of positivity in that regard, pre-9/11. So much so that Muslims still to this day are more progressive in the United States of America than a much more dominant subgroup, white evangelical Protestants. Muslims in the United States of America are more progressive overall than white evangelical Christians. Okay?
So how much truth is there in Black Ops Cold War? Well, it's like a lot of movies that are based on true events. The setting is pretty accurate, but the actual plot? Not so much based on the information that's out there. One thing that I found interesting was that in one of the initial trailers for the game, it featured a tiny scene from the Tiananmen Square incident, where the Chinese government declared martial law to stop a protest, which resulted in many casualties, an event that the Chinese government would rather people forget about. So naturally, the Chinese government, who controls a very big market for everything including video games,
they took it out?
like this trailer. And after pressure, Activision released—
That's so fucked up, dude. Oh, you know, just a mini incident occurred where some people died, you know? Or sorry, that actually didn't happen. Dude. Activision is so spineless. Bitch, they're owned. They're literally owned by... See, that's the difference. Like, in America, they don't teach half the fucking massacres that we engage in schools, but at least you can put it in an American video game, you know? As long as you don't get the funding from the Defense Department. As long as you don't want funding from the Defense Department. Forced secularization on the general public is also oppressive. There's a huge difference between the separation of church and state and the forced secularization of people. Man, we talk about the forced secularization of people. There's still a fucking ministry of divinity in Turkey. Like, okay? Like, Turkey is very difficult to... Like, Turkey's very difficult to fucking explain in this way. Like, sensitive Andy. I mean, no, there's a fucking religious ministry in Turkey.
Released a shorter version of the trailer without the scene. Which is pretty ironic that they're self-censoring on behalf of the new Cold War enemy, for a game that's based on the first Cold War. But who am I to judge?
Oh, come on, bro. He's his new Cold War enemy.
Guys, it is a beautiful night out here.
Is it fair to say that public policy should be secular, in a sense, freedom of religion nationally? Yeah, no shit. How many fucking times have I told... How many times have I shit on even Muslims? Muslims, Christians, anybody who tries to oppress others and uses religion to back up their claims, like teaching LGBT teachings in school. Like, teaching LGBT stuff in school should never be fucking pushed back on. Like, that's insane. My cousin is correcting me. He's saying Diyanet İşleri Başkanlığı var, bakanlık değil. Anayasaya göre din ve devlet işleri ayrı Türkiye'de. There's a distinction. It's not a ministry.